War Eagle Auburn family, welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we get together, we sit down, and we talk about what's going on in the world of the Auburn family spectrum. Always heavy on the sports here on this channel, but if it's orange and blue, it is what we do. Tonight's live stream, it is a Monday night and has been the case throughout the entirety of Auburn football season. As frustrating as it has been, we are discussing the last football game and grading it out. The position grades, all of the offense, all the defense, and we try to throw the special teams in there at the end as well. We'll be grading it out, and we'd love to hear some of your perspectives and some of your grades as well. So that is what is on tap for you in this live stream. But first of all, let's take care of the normal stuff. We want to welcome you here. If this is your first time here, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any content. If you are a regular, you know the drill. And for you new people, this is the drill. This is our check-in period. Right now, where you're watching from, post where you are watching from, city, state, international, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Facebook, on Twitter, whether it's on the replay or live. Post where you're watching from, and right now, together in unison, smash that like button, that share button, that retweet button, whatever it is. Post all that, share it all out, invite people to be part of the stream tonight and be part of the conversation. As not so fun as it might be right now for Auburn football, but I would argue that tonight is one of those nights where there's actually more good things to talk about than you would think. I was on my afternoon walk this afternoon and just kind of thinking through my grades a little bit, kind of trying to put some thoughts to those grades and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm actually excited to talk about it. Not because it's all good, but because there's actually some new things to discuss, some progress maybe to talk about and grade out. So we're going to do that tonight. Normally, and usually is the case, I have my co-host with me, Ben King, who is planning to be here tonight. He is supposed to be here. As soon as I see him, if he gets checked in, I will allow him in after he kind of gets set up in the green room, and we'll say hello to him unless something else has happened that I don't know about. So we will just power through tonight and do our grades the normal way anyway. So with that being said, I kind of want to start off with just discussing some of the big things that take away from this. And look, I know the popular thing, especially those of you that comment after the fact and don't watch the replay. That's when it's safest to make those type of comments because there's not really much reaction back. We can go on and on about Coach Harsin. Should he be fired? Should he not? The point is he doesn't look like he's going to be fired for now. So we're really going to just focus on not so much that aspect of the football program, but we're going to focus more so on what it could mean going forward. And what the team needs to do and how we can take some of the analysis and things that we learned from this game and try to move that going forward. What are the things that worked that didn't work before? What are the things that didn't work this time? And there were some that did work before. That's what we're going to hit on tonight. And obviously your perspectives on those are always valued, especially your grades. The biggest thing for me, honestly, is that I had a lot more fun in this particular game. Like just the fact that we were in it, that we were showing life, that we had the ability to go down. I think we all thought about it, right? We all saw it go down 21-0. Everybody was despondent. Everybody's like, here it goes. The storyline that's been building all week. Coach Harsin's going to get fired after this. It's a debacle. And it didn't come to fruition. It actually showed out to be a game where Auburn's offense showed up. The defense got there and it showed up in some areas, but really was lackluster down the stretch. So almost the reversal of what we've talked about all throughout this week. Or not this week, but this entire season, where when is the offense going to show up to support this defense? And then lo and behold, they showed up. Got down by 21 points and made their way back into it. They scored or almost scored 14 in the first quarter. Auburn scored 17 in the second quarter to their 14, 28-17 going into the half. The really funny thing is the second and third quarter for Auburn were very, very good for them. If it weren't for some poor decisions and poor execution and a rain delay. Now listen, I'm not in any way saying that the rain delay helped anybody. or hindered anybody, but you have to kind of factor that in as well. Well, it wasn't a rain delay; it was a lightning delay. Anybody there at Ole Miss that was at the game can confirm if it rained or not. Rob is usually good for that because I think he traveled out there. He always raves about how good the tailgating is there. John says there was fighting the boys, not embarrassing. It's kind of weird to say this is the first time we're talking about an Auburn football game that wasn't really embarrassing in a lot of ways. Now, there were some things that did not look good, as is the case. If you thought this week that Auburn football was going to come out and just look night and day different and just have it all put together, then you were just fooling yourself. They have still a long way to go and miles to go before we sleep. And I hope, and I hope everybody here thinks of it this way too. What is the best thing for Auburn moving forward? Is it to make a coaching change? Because if it's not, then we definitely need, we definitely need to figure out a way to move forward productively as an Auburn family. We've had a lot of conversations on my personal Twitter account today about all of that. Devin, thanks for tuning in from your T-ball game. Hopefully we'll get the updates from how it's going while you watch. So we thank you for your commitment to watching the show, even when you've got a lot of stuff going on. All right. So Ben's still not here. I don't know what happened to Ben. Hopefully we'll see him at some point because he did give me the confirmation that he would be here. I hope everything's okay with him, and we'll move right along with that. Gordon, or is it Jordan says, OMG, we might actually have offensive linemen. We need to keep Jones, Keandre Jones, I'm assuming, and Jeremiah Wright in the front. Those guys are a fighter. That's definitely an area that we're going to talk about today. And honestly, we've talked about this a lot. The problem with this offense, no matter who the quarterback is, no matter who running back, wide receivers, no matter who the offensive coordinator is, the wide receivers coach is, no matter the coach, the player, anything, this offense's biggest issue has been the offensive line. And it's amazing what happens when they show up and they do the things that we expected them to do. A lot of them now, so many of them have gotten hurt or banged up and stuff like that. And it's kind of funny. We talked a lot about it at the beginning of the season. What's the combination of guys that are going to win this game? Is it now Jeremiah Wright in there and Keandre Jones? Maybe it worked against Ole Miss. I'm inclined to believe, too, that Ole Miss was not as – I'm not bought into Ole Miss as a team, especially as a top 10 team right now. I heard a lot this week about their defense being a lot better than advertised. And I don't think that showed up for them in a lot of ways in this game. The way certain players gashed them from the Tigers, that was really nice to see, wasn't it? That was probably one of the bigger highlights of that. We're going to talk about that in a second because I know that's one of the bigger things there. Harsin inherited most of this, and John, I agree with some of that narrative, but I also see the other side of that equation that, yes, you inherited this, but there is a point where anybody inherits this and they need to do something with it going forward. I think I find myself not dismissing the issues, the criticism, the constructive parts of it, but also willing to give time and patience. I think that's what being lost right now. Gracie, we're not going to talk about that. I'm sorry. We're just not. Yes, I did not watch it, but I saw that is neither here nor there. He is not the coach. And if he ever becomes the coach, we will discuss it. John, and I'm going to disagree with you a little bit there. I don't think the recruiting was poor in terms of how we think of it, but the results of that recruiting are definitely poor. So if we want to talk about it in that sense, yes, the poor recruiting that it looks like right now, but also goes into that is the word I hate that's overused, the development as well. But it is true. Recruiting and development go hand in hand, which is why I stress that stars aren't all that important. They're important for rankings, for exciting signing days. That's about it. And people have been trained to think that they're a lot more important than they are. But either way, let's dive a little bit more into this game. We're about 10 minutes into the show. And like I said, I apologize. I don't know where Ben is at right now. We'll hopefully hear from him at some point tonight. O-line specifically, yes, I will relent to that. You've heard me say that here, that the O-line recruiting did not. I would argue the O-line coaching did not serve us any favors. Not necessarily the recruiting, the coaching, the development. All right, so let's jump into it. We're going to grade out every single position that we have for this team. We're going to start with the offense, as we typically do. And a lot of the times we have had to start with a unit that is, been very much beleaguered, been very much, looked upon as the biggest part of the problem of this offense. And yes, that is true. But this time, we're not going to start with them because they weren't the biggest problem. In fact, I would argue that they probably deserve a lot more praise than a lot of people are willing to give them right now, because frankly, they showed up and got the job done and created some opportunities for the running game and created opportunities for the quarterback. Let me start with quarterback, because I think that's going to be the one that is going to be a little bit controversial, in the sense that I think a lot of people are not going to agree with my grade. So if you have a grade or some thoughts, not necessarily a grade yet, we'll save that for a second. If you have some thoughts, excuse me, on what your impressions of the quarterback situation in this game panned out, the things that stuck out to you, that you liked, that you didn't like. Again, I think it would be wise for us all to think of, when we talk about this game, ruling out the whole TJ Finley thing, because and let me actually take a step back here in just a second and kind of address that. It was used as nothing more. We can make this in hindsight, this assumption now with fair certainty, that it was used to get Robbie's head straight, because Robbie was not in a good place. So yes, TJ fumbled, lost the fumble. He got hit from behind, one of the bad spots of the offensive line in this game. But I think when you assess this game overall, you kind of almost have to put TJ out of it. I do want to address this before we come back to the overall of discussing the quarterback grade. I want to give credit where credit is due in terms of coaching decisions. There's been a lot of, maybe rightfully so in some cases too, not to the level that you see a lot of times, but in some cases rightfully so, criticism of coaching decisions, and more so the adjustment in the second half. And I'm not I'm not addressing the adjustments or lack thereof or arrival in this game, but the coaching decision to sit Robbie in the middle of that game, when he was not in a great place, when he was not at a point where his head was all there together, very frustrated, seeing this thing fall apart. And look what happened after they sat him for that series. Yeah, it resulted in a fumble, probably a possession and some points given away there. But look what happened after. Robbie got it together, led the team down the field. The team overall got it together. It was almost kind of like a reset. And coaches know when that needs to happen. That's the second time in coach's very short tenure so far here at Auburn that he's made that call, and it's been a smart one. Now, it was different, right? Last time it was Bo in the Georgia State game, and that was, the right call at the time, because TJ won us the game. Bo was not getting the job done. Doesn't mean he deserved to start at that time, but he at least got the job done. I think this was the right call here. They needed to sit him down and get his head straight, let him be frustrated. We all saw the clips of him being frustrated, slamming the phone down. And after that, comes in and lights it up. So I want to commend the coaches for making that coaching decision, because that was a very smart one, and obviously got us to where we're at this point. You got to put your players in the best position, and sometimes that means not putting them in the position to create more problems when they're not in the right headspace. So kudos to them. So leaving TJ out of it, really, because it was just a reset usage for him. And I don't think that he's all together ready yet, if he's going to be used any further. So there is the question at hand. How did Robbie do? What do you guys think? How do you assess Robbie Ashford on this particular game? For me, I look at this and I see still a very young guy making a lot of young guy mistakes. Understandable, right? Very frustrating at times. But again, you continue to see the athlete in him. You continue to see the potential in him. So really it becomes a question at this point of how do you rate that? Do you weigh more the mistakes that were made that made things difficult at times versus what we saw when things got righted? So for me, I want to address what I saw in the silence. I wasn't that at the game. I wasn't on the sideline, so I don't know what was and wasn't said to make Robbie so frustrated that time he got off the phone and stuff. But you kind of understand it, right? Going 21 down, 21 nothing down, and you're trying to figure out how to right the ship, and it's not going well. You'd like to see a little bit more composure, but on the flip side, that just shows that he cares, right? He wants to win this game for obviously himself, but for his team and for the fans. So you honor that. There was also the thing on the sideline with Tank, which it's always interesting. We talked about this in the reaction show. In 1 year, if this is a different quarterback, Bo, people are blaming Bo, saying what a jerk he was. But there are a lot of people defending Robbie in this situation. But it doesn't matter. The issue isn't who was right or wrong. These things happen on a football field, especially when things aren't going well. You got to try to figure it out. You got to work out some of the angst, some of the frustrations with each other. My interpretation of the situation is based on what we could see is Tank was kind of saying like trying to in a young older brother trying to give him some hard encouragement, and Robbie wasn't at a place he wanted to see it and was trying to say, I think we could like read his lips and say, don't give up on me or something like that. I think that's what the media was trying to say. Was there right now or was being said on the field at the time. So I don't really put a whole lot into that. I don't think it should have been put a whole lot into last year when that happened, or 2 years ago when it happened between Bo and Seth. I just saw Robbie making a lot of young guy mistakes overall. I also saw him give 2 picks in this game. Not what you want to see at all. He's 8 for 17 on the day, 140 yards. Not great numbers overall. No touchdown passes for him on this day. He also runs for 35 yards on 15 carries. A lot of those were him running for his life. He had a long of 22, 2 rushing touchdowns for him on the day. So really, it's tough for me to grade this one because it's like Robbie's moments of bad were really bad, but his moments of greatness were really great. Some great decisions to pull it and run to score the touchdowns. So really, how do you guys grade it? If you want to share your grade right now, you can. Felix, good to see you, my man. Thanks for being here. C+, not bad. We are watching a star be born. Let him grow. I'll be honest with you. I'm trying to, even now, I kind of had it in my head what I wanted to give him, and now I'm not so certain that that's a fair grade overall for him. I think the response, the frustrations he had, the being upset, that's negated by the response that he had, the way he responded to adversity. I think that gives him a lot of credit there, but there were a lot of things also that he could have done better in this game to be more of a factor in this game. B for you, I'm at B+, really. That's fair. I think what I'm going to go with is a C+. And that might be a little bit harsh. I'm going to go with Jordan, what he said earlier. I was actually kind of sitting at a C- when I was writing this down on paper, thinking through my thoughts before the show and trying to come up with something that would be fair, would be honest. But at the same time, I think, you're the guy. You got to do a little bit better in your second start. And there were moments where that didn't happen. So I think C+, lots of room to grow. Not in any way am I upset with him now and thinking he's not the guy. I think he is definitely the best option that we had. With all the guys that we had available, knowing what we know now, Zach was not right with his shoulder. TJ's obviously hurt, and given his style of being the quarterback, I would still say that Robbie right now is our best option because he creates so many other opportunities for this offense. Very happy with the way he responded this game for that. I'm going to give him a C+, but I think he is very close to taking that next step even in this season, that we need him to take to make this a little bit more dynamic. All right, let's talk about the fun one, the really, really fun one. Running backs. How long has it been, folks? How long has it been since we have been able to celebrate running backs like we have in this game? I'm not just talking about my boy Tank. I'm not just talking about Robbie. When we already talked about him in his 2 touchdowns. I'm talking about Jarquez. I'm talking about Damari Alston. The entirety of the running game was humongous for both teams. More on that coming up in a little bit. The entirety of the running game in this particular game for Auburn especially was the difference. Tank Bigsby's son, have you a day. What did you guys think about the running game? Not necessarily a grade, just some overall thoughts, things that stuck out to you. 20 carries for Tank Bigsby, 179 yards, 2 touchdowns for the big old hog molly. Yeah, I agree, Felix. Very happy with what we saw from the running game. Jarquez, 10 carries for 80 yards. He had a long of 48. Tank had to do him up by 2 with a long of 50. Robbie Ashford, we talked about, 15 carries for 35 yards, 2 touchdowns, though. Damari Alston, 2 for 14, so an average of 7 there for him. And obviously, TJ really didn't factor much into it because he got a sack, and that's really all that really was about. Damari had a long of 12 for one of his runs. Nice. So across the board, the running game, outstanding, especially when you compare it to the rest. You said B pluses for the whole team. What would you say for, I guess, the quarterback earlier, if you wanted to share that in the chat? But we won't go back to that, but that's because we're on the running backs right now. So overall as a team, 48 rushes for 301 yards, 4 touchdowns, and again, that long of 50. Outstanding job by the running backs. For the first time in a long time, we saw the example of what happens when you give Tank Bigsby the room to do what he can do so well, and that is absorb, bounce in the second level, and when he gets to the third level of that defense, you see he can turn that speed on and use that shiftiness to break out into the open field like he did on that 50-yard run. I have been waiting, hoping, praying that this would happen in this game, and it did. And it was so refreshing to see and to get excited about. I was jumping up and down here, probably embarrassing my wife when we had family over. So happy for Tank, so happy for Jarquez, for Ashford as well, and Damari Alston. The running game was outstanding. Does anybody want to make a case for anything other than A+? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Listen, I'm probably negating things like maybe they missed a few blocks in the receiving game. Maybe they missed, dropped a pass or two. I think there was the one with Tank that did or nearly got intercepted or something like that. But it was just absolutely outstanding. We got a B+. We had a good day running the ball, but we are still getting stopped behind the line. But Tank had to remind the country that he's still the best despite the team record. So really what it sounds like, Jordan, and we're going to talk about in just a second, the offensive line is what you're really assessing there, not the running backs. We're talking about the running backs doing with what they're given. With 20 carries for 179 yards, I don't know how you give them anything other than an A+. I'm sorry. I may be just looking at this through orange and blue glasses, and maybe it's because I've been deprived for so long of talking about the team this way when it comes to the running game. A+. A+, 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 A+. I'm just going to say it over and over and over again. All right. So that's the running backs. We can come back to some of those if you'd like to in a little bit. But I would like for us to talk about the offensive line a little bit. As we've addressed, lots of criticism this year, right? Rightfully so. Tons of criticism. Not creating a lot of push. Letting guys Ole. We've all seen the clips that everybody's sharing on social media about them Oleing people last time. I've said it till I'm blue in the face that the game is won in line on the offensive line. And this is the first time in a long time where I find more things to be happy about. Talking about the running game there. More things to be happy about than to be upset about. Yes, there are still things happening behind the line. They're still getting plays blown up way too early, way too often, but they were making things happen. A lot of people are talking about the fact that Jeremiah Wright was moved in there. Was that the single thing that made a difference? Probably not. It's probably a combination of finding the right group of guys and getting some things worked out and figured out. Absolutely, comparatively, a great job by this offensive line, creating holes, because it's just like we talked about with Tank, right? What he can do when he gets into the second and third level, but he's got to get there when he's met, not just getting a little clip where he can kind of bounce and absorb, but just getting met by a wall. Eric Dickerson, Barry Sanders, Bo Jackson can't do much when you're met the way they've been met at sometimes. So this, for me, is a great game for the offensive line. I was really impressed with the O-line, but need more blocking, and to wrap up the tackle, more ankle tackles. What does that have to do with the offensive line? I'm not understanding there. Robbie had time to throw. It was lovely to see. So if I am going to knock them at one time, and I cannot stand this, and Robbie doesn't have that clock in his head yet as well. TJ had it happen to him too. The fact that they were caught from behind, causing, fumbles or incomplete passes or something like that a lot, from the offensive line blocks not happening on the backside of whether they're in the pocket or running outside the pocket. That's got to continue to get better. So it is not a perfect game. It is not a game where we walk away and say, they've got it all figured out. But we finally saw progress, and you see it was almost, and this is maybe petty of me, vindication for me here, because I know a lot of you roll your eyes when I continue to reiterate that this game is a game of inches, that it's won on the offensive and defensive lines. And it's boring to talk about, but it's the reality. You see what happens the moment that gives you some life, what this team could be capable of. Not a championship, not a West Division championship, that's gone, but the opportunity to do some really good things this year. Let's see. O-line gets an A, but the D-line gets, well, we'll get there in a little bit, Lisa. Hold your horses. Let's see here. Did they get great after a few people went down? I know it's easy to think that, Felix. I'm not really sticking with that narrative, because I think it can be mean to say that about people when it's not necessarily any proof behind that. Sometimes just there's a certain combination of people that you find at the right time that works, and maybe we've definitely found that. Jordan says D on the run blocking, B on the pass blocking. We had 7+ plays where Robbie had more than 4 seconds to throw the ball. I'm going to vehemently disagree with you on the run blocking. Was it great? No, but it was not a D. You can probably convince me for a C+, and I'll relent there. But in my mind, the run blocking at worst is a B-. Pass blocking is probably right there as well. When you allow a quarterback to get hit from behind and fumble the ball, no matter who it is, that's honestly drops you right back down to a B. So what do you guys think? Great amount. The offensive line, what do you think? Be honest, but at the same time, let's give them credit where credit is due. What do you guys think? Post that in the chat right now. Okay, so I would grade them probably. Look at this. So it's 301 yards rushing. They had were a huge contributor to that. Robbie, I'm trying to find how many times we did allow the fumble situation that we've already addressed. There were 3 sacks allowed by our offensive line, our blocking on Robbie or TJ. Let's see how many tackles for loss. 7. So they definitely did get to them, but it felt like things were working a lot better tonight. So we got a B- from Corey. I think I'm going to give them a little bit more credit. I think I'm going to go with a B. Probably a little bit high, probably very similar, conversation that I was just having about the running backs. I'm just happy to have something positive to talk about in this area. So I'm willing to be just slightly more forgiving, but go ahead and share your grades now if you haven't done so already. And in the meantime, we will continue moving on to the next group. The last group of the offensive team would be the receivers. And listen, we can talk about tight ends within this too, and I guess we probably should have addressed them a little bit more with the blocking, but they were a very big impact on receivers as well. So let's talk about it. We already talked about Robbie's element of this. He was 8 for 17, only 8 completions. Yes, he had time, but he was not getting it out there all that much to guys. But the people who did have receptions, we had 8 different guys with receptions. Coy Moore with 1 for 46 yards. What a play that was. Luke Deal, another great play, 1 for 32 yards. Jay Fair had another great play for 23 yards. Mari Kelly in the mix. Javarius Johnson gets 2, but only 10 yards. And then John Samuel Shanker, Jarquez Hunter also get in the mix. 1 catch apiece for 5 yards. So when you look at numbers strictly, this is not a very exciting passing game, receiving game. But I can't really recall a lot of negative from the receivers. Can anybody else think of something bad that happened? Because I'm frankly, given what they were given to work with, I see a lot of things to be excited about there. The Coy Moore catch and run, Luke Deal's big catch over the middle. Got to have those big tight ends making those plays on big third downs. Seeing new faces in there is great. That's exciting. John Samuel Shanker does what he does. And then Javarius Johnson's kind of like the stalwart there, having him show up all the time. A+, our future is bright for young receivers. I don't know that it's A+. A+ would mean that you had probably multiple passing touchdowns, maybe another big play or two. To me, this is probably not in the territory of an A. It could maybe be an A-. I just think that you need to have more done there. Let's not forget that Ole Miss doesn't have the most stellar defense in the SEC, but this was good practice for us. I hope that isn't lost. You're right, Corey. But, the story has been, I listened to some of Coach Kiffin's press conference because it's always right before Coach Harson's each week, talking about how great their defense has been, and surprisingly so. And I think that was probably a little quick, but it's still SEC caliber guys. So you got to give them a little bit of a credit of what they did running, but also what they were able to get defensive passing wise as well. Yeah, the pass interference we're getting to in a little bit. So if nobody else can make a case for these guys in terms of having a really negative towards them or a really good positive, I'm probably going to sit at about a B+. So when you look at this overall, and we talk about this, do you have an overall grade for the offense? You can share that now. I had someone share earlier, it was about a B+. So if you kind of look at mine, I did a B+ for the receivers, A+ for the running backs. That's really going to get it up there. About a B for the offensive line, I think, or B-, somewhere in that range. And quarterback, I gave a C+. So really, you've got a solid B+ of an offense, maybe pushing an A-. Not great, not outstanding, but wow, did it show up and keep us in the game that we had no business being in from the get-go. Got to give it credit where credit is due. Yeah, Felix, you said earlier B+, so I tend to agree. You could probably convince me of an A-, but B+ is what we're going to sit at for right now. All right, so let's move on. Again, for those of you that may just be joining us, we don't know where Ben is at tonight. He was supposed to be here. I'm sure something just came up. We'll catch up with him later, make sure everything's good over there, but it is just us tonight hanging out. Let's talk about some defense. Again, the narrative has been the entire year The defense needs some help in terms of support from the offense. When is the offense going to show up to help this defense that's been keeping us in games? And finally, the narrative seemed to have switched. Now, does everybody remember that the team was pretty much doing a good job of keeping Ole Miss in check for the most part until the end of the game? I think there's a very clear area when you look at this game where Auburn's weakest Achilles heel was in terms of defensively. And you look no further than their rushing attack. We had 301 in the day. They said, I'll see your 301 and run up 448 yards on you. So we're going to start where I think the biggest problem was, and that is the defensive line, including some edges. The edges are kind of now like the tight ends where they're lumped in with the linebackers, but mainly the defensive line still. A lot of injuries in this game across the board. In fact, let me kind of like I took a quick second to step back from the offensive discussion to kind of make an overarching statement. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that nobody in defense for me is going to get nobody is going to get anything higher than a B plus simply because of the missed tackles. Missed tackles. I saw defensive backs missing tackles. I saw defensive linemen missing tackles. I saw linebackers missing tackles. I also saw all those guys making plays. But we're going to go ahead and say that everybody, in my view, gets no higher than a B plus because of the missed tackles. So that is just covering that across the board. And of course, the injuries were a big factor in that as well. Not making excuses, but it is part of that. See, John, we're going to talk about this in a second. I don't necessarily agree. I feel like I disagree with you a lot tonight, but I would be intrigued why you think that. But hold on one second. Talking about the defensive line. 448 yards of rushing. 3 guys over 100 yards rushing. Judkins, who we knew was going to be great, and boy, did we make him look like a world beater. 2 touchdowns, 25 carries, 135 yards. Zach Evans, we also knew he was pretty good. 21 yards, 136 yards for a touchdown. And then Jackson Dark. Honestly, you can ask the question, if we do a better job of keeping Jackson Dart from running the way he did, is this a much different ball game? I really think 1 or 2 of these things are different, and Auburn is probably in position to win the game. Not win it outright, but in position to be able to win it, meaning they're, a touchdown or less for making a play. So defensive line wise, you noticed at the end of the game that they were just running straight through. We all remember where it was just like the Red Sea parted and he ran straight through. Just like we talked about with our running backs, specifically Tank, needing some type of hole to make a move to get to the second level. We need these guys to not give them any particular room to get ahead of steam. And I think it was Judkins who just burst away on that run. That was just kind of like the killer at the end of the game. That's on the defensive line. Not an ounce of grabbing, tripping, reaching for him, just straight on through. I did not like the way that our defensive line played at the end of the game. If you look at it, D. Hall, who did get injured again this game, I don't know what his status is. 10 total tackles, 7 yards. Morris Joseph with 6 tackles. Nice to see him getting some more action there. Colby Wooden, I remember showing up a couple times in this game with 6 tackles total. Also, he had a tackle for a loss. You had Jason Jones with 4 tackles, Marcus Bragg with 3, Marquise Burks with 3, Marcus Harris with 2, and who is Willis? Hold on, I got to look at this now that I'm looking at it. Joko. Okay, Joko got in there. That was nice to see Joko on the stat sheet. Anyway, the point stands here. I did not like the way we played on the defensive line front, especially at the end of the game. I would have probably given them a case leading in that somewhere in the B's, but because of that, I'm going to give them a C-. Not great. Got the job done early, but not enough at that point. You look at sacks didn't really come from them. The tackles for loss, only one of them came. Not that we got a whole lot outside of them, but only one of them came from them. So for me, Yeah, huge holes everywhere. We got a C plus, B plus for the defensive line, but not great like we usually do. See, I B plus to me is like above average. That's not above average. That was not good. Granted, it was at the end of the game, so I'm going to just give them a C plus to acknowledge what they did early on in the game. So there is that. Let's talk about that. All right, let's talk about linebackers now, because John brought it up a little bit earlier. He brought up the point: poor linebacker play, not filling gaps. Let me just start off linebackers with this. I have really tried to take a step back and talk about with openness about linebackers. They're hard to kind of really grade out fairly, because if they aren't making plays, then people assume they're not doing anything. But if they are making plays, that means they're getting into your second level, which was obviously the case with the defensive line at the beginning of this game. I talked to a bunch of people here, social media, otherwise, just about opinions about the game and stuff. And it is like night and day difference, whether it's about Owen Pepo, the linebackers as a whole. Linebackers are great. Linebackers are awful. No one can make up their mind. There's not even really anybody in between. So I've really struggled with where I sit at on this. Here's what I do know is the stat sheet. 16 total tackles. That's more than the great game that Cam Riley had. Where is he? By the way, 16 total tackles for Owen Pepo, 7 solo for him. Now, people are saying that there was a lot of missed tackles. Everybody had missed tackles, not just Owen Pepo and the linebackers. Everybody did. So we're kind of not negating that, but it was a problem across the board. Arguably one of the bigger problems that could have made a huge swing in this game. Wesley Steiner was all over the place. 10 total tackles for him. So a great job by him. Kind of going down here again, you can kind of throw your edges into this position as well, the way we kind of typically play things out. Joko Willis probably falls into that category with 1 tackle as well. Barton Lester too, getting more time over there, earning it from special teams play. I don't think that the linebackers had an outstanding game. I don't want you guys to hear me when I kind of question the narrative that they're not playing well. I think that the biggest thing that would set them apart for me is for them to make more plays. We saw Owen Pepo just come in and Penn State and crush somebody, lay him out. And it just feels like, that hasn't been happening a lot outside of that. And they were very close to getting their interception, but another guy got that. We'll talk about in a second. By the way, I just noticed on the sheet that there's a player on the defense of Ole Miss named Igbenasun, maybe is what his name was. So that just kind of threw me off there when I looked at that. But yes, they were not filling the gaps that were opening up, which were miles wide. So really, yes, that is their job to fill those gaps, but there shouldn't be gaps to begin with. So the problem needs to start at the very beginning, not just what makes the last or the lack of the last play. So very frustrated with the front 7 overall at the very end of the game. I'm going to give the linebackers, though, if you guys would like to share a opinion, you can, or a grade right now in the chat, you can. I'm going to probably give them about a B minus. More plays continue to be needed and need to show up a little bit more. Pepo made a lot of tackles Saturday. I say we give him another game or 2 to step it up, and I think he's going to eventually make a breakout game, making a huge stop on a crucial down. I think that's what's missing, Sam. One of those big. We talk about. Sucks to talk about, but Will Anderson, of Alabama for a reason. He's a playmaker, play stopper. We haven't really seen that a lot from Owen this year, and I think that's what's missing. We kind of saw some flashes of that with Wesley Steiner, which I was very happy about in this game, just flying up there and stuff like that. If we can get both those guys doing that, along with Joko Willis, who else am I missing in this position? Barton Lester's in there, but I'm thinking of the guys that play the most. Cam Riley, where are you? We could have a little bit more of an exciting linebacker play. All right, so that's linebackers. Let's talk about the defensive backs. And I think unsung heroes of this game overall kept what could be very potent passing game outside of Jackson Dart's deficiencies himself for Ole Miss in check. No Quarterback got above 9 completions in this game. We already talked about Robbie. Jackson Dart is 9 for 19 on the day, 130 yards, so less efficient than Robbie. 3 touchdowns, technically. I guess that makes him more efficient. He got an 80 QBR, 1 interception. So, yeah, you hate the 3 touchdowns, but the other stats look great. He doesn't have a great day overall yardage wise and things like that. Got the interception on an errant throw into the middle of traffic, and it seemed like everybody had a chance to intercept that ball, right? Was it like 5 to 6 guys that had an opportunity to get their hands on that ball, bring it in, and make it their own, and didn't do it. But Keontae Scott, my man, gets in there and takes that ball away from them. By the way, I want to, since we're talking about defensive backs, Ladarius Tennyson, our former player on Ole Miss, got 7 tackles in the game. And Pegues got 6 himself. So they did at least make somewhat of a difference against Auburn, being out there playing for Ole Miss now, which is very sad and hurts my heart. Defensive back-wise, we talked about Kaufman, second leading tackler on the roster for this game. 11 total tackles for him. He got half a tackle for loss. Keontae Scott got a half a tackle for loss. Zion Puckett with a sack, tackle for loss. Outstanding play. So when you talk about people making plays, it was the defensive backs. Interception, tackles for loss, a sack, flying around everywhere, doing a great job of doing what Coach Harsin has preached about, competing for the ball on every single level of the game. Back where they're supposed to be, up in front of the line, across the, in the backfield. So you really got to give your hats off to these guys for locking down Jackson Dart. Even though there wasn't a lot of opportunities, he was struggling too, making plays, giving the offense another opportunity to continue what they were doing. So if you really want to find a happy place, it is going to be the defensive backs. Now, I did grant to you at the beginning of the defensive analysis, we are not going to give nobody on defense higher than a B+ because of the missed tackles, and they were everywhere. Even here, I hate it because there was so much done by the defensive backs, but we got to be fair. Missed tackles are a big problem, and they need to be addressed as such in our grading. So that being said, they're going to get a B+ because it's the highest I can give them based off my parameters that I laid out there. Now let's talk about, can we talk about that we haven't been called for targeting once this season? I'll give the D and A+ for that. That's fair. That's fair. And we can actually talk about that pass interference. Is there anybody that can make a case to say that was actually pass interference on, who is it on? Who is it called on? Was it Nehemiah? Nehemiah got hurt in this game too. Injuries galore. It wasn't the most blatantly non-pass interference call that I've ever seen, but it definitely wasn't the easiest one to make. So I think personally, that was a bad call. Definitely altered the course of the game. That doesn't mean that we win outside of that. Again, we've talked about a lot of things that Auburn needed to do differently. Stop their run. Fewer missed tackles. The receivers being more of a factor, and that starts with Robbie distributing the ball a little bit better. Those things would have really, 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 really helped. So it's not like that pass interference decided the game, but it definitely altered the course of the game. That stop happens. They kick a field goal. I think they were on like the 30-something. Not an easy field goal to make. Maybe miss it. Who knows how the rest of the game unfolds from that point. Definitely changed the course of the game. All right. So that is the offense and the defense. If you'd like to give a grade overall for the defense, please, you can post that right now. I will probably put them all at probably a B- because of the missed tackles, and because even though I gave a B-, a B, and a B+, I think. No, I gave 2 B-. Probably that's what it was. So I'm going to sit it firmly at a B- simply for some of the things at the end of the game that clearly did not get the job done overall. Oh, no, I didn't give the defensive line a B-. I gave them a C+, something like that. Anyway, so that's kind of the grading for those two things. Special teams wise, if you just want to do a quick overview of that and kind of looking overall at what's been going on there in this game, Anders Carlson, 2 for 2 on the day, 4 for 4 on his extra points. Can't really ask him to do anything else more. That's an A right there. Nothing outstanding. His long was a 42. That's pretty good. There's a D right there. Or overall, the D gets a C plus. Fair. Long of 42, so it's not like it was a 50-yarder he knocked under at that. So I'm going to probably give him alone an A. Oscar Chapman continues to boom it. 3 punts, 148 yards, and didn't have to use him a whole lot in this game, which was nice. But when we did, he showed up. A 57-yard punt. Great. One inside the 20, that one. Absolutely outstanding from him. He deserves to be in the Ray Guide nomination. You can go and vote for him now. Apparently, we shared it. So did Auburn football. So A plus for him in this game too. So A plus, A individually. The onside kick. Lane Kiffin, I don't like you. I knew we were going to get a trick play at some point. I just didn't think it was going to be there. Hats off to them for finding that weakness. You could see how our up back had dropped off a little bit, and they probably picked up on that. I think it was Camden Brown was not ready for it, not prepared for it. So that is coaching. That is us being able to analyze that and look at that. I can guarantee you one thing. It won't happen again. Whoever's put in that spot, Camden or otherwise, will know. Be ready. This has been identified as a weak point for us. So that's more to me, though. You got to tip your hat to Lane and the staff at Ole Miss for that. So it sucks. It really does. But it happened. So for now, I look at that overall, I'll probably put like an A, probably an A minus, because that onside kick nearly drops it down to B territory for me, but they handled business everywhere else. So those are the grades. We did not see Ben King at all. I don't know where he's at. We hope it's okay. But we'll follow up, hopefully see him again next week. But that's going to be our grading show. I can spend the next few minutes addressing any comments or questions you might have about this game, commentary we had here, or, a little bit about just things overall. Ben is in the chat. Ben gets an F for his position grades. Ben, is that actually you giving yourself an F? You can pop on for a second if you'd like to say hello to the folks, but you don't have to. I understand. We can talk later. I appreciate you at least checking in and saying hello to us. We may do without you if that is you. I don't know anybody else that takes your moniker like that or your handle. Anyway, if you guys have other comments or questions, post them now. We can take them. Gotcha. We'll talk later. We will beat Arkansas the weekend after the off week. Will we beat them? I tried to tell this a lot of people. I never got on and yeah, it's easy to say now, but I was saying it back then. I was not going to be on the Arkansas hype train. I think I admitted I gave the Sam Pittman hire a lot of flack. Worked out a lot better than I thought it would be, but I still don't buy into it. I don't know that I've seen everything I need to see from this Auburn team to feel super confident, even at home, that's a win for us. Did I see enough in this game to feel confident that we're very capable of that, and it should be a higher likelihood than we were thinking maybe a week or two ago? Yes, definitely. But it's very much in question. We'll see. Let's see what comes out this week with the off week. You never know. Let's hope they heal up. I think KJ Jefferson is still down for Arkansas, right? So we'll see what happens. Ben needs to suck it up, Buttercup. We're in this toilet together. I love that, Corey. I do. I'm sure Ben just had some stuff going on, so that's perfectly fine. He is not one to hide from the bad. So that is not why he is gone tonight. Bari and Kessler will play in their first NBA game this Wednesday. Saw that. It will be really cool. Really cool thing to see overall. All right. We got about 5 minutes left, but when we regularly get out of here. So continue to post your comments and questions. Let me give you a couple of reminders here. Do check out the links in the description, please, if you can, and consider doing some of those things down there, whether that is being part of the Booster Club, or whether that's being a channel member here. $1 a month is both the starting point for both those things. There's only $1 a month period, a channel member. Hit the join button. There's other ways that you can help financially support us, keep the lights on, help us continue to grow. The reason we are doing this is because of viewers like you. Sound like PBS now. But we thank you guys so much for your support and being here and hanging out with us on these live streams. Wednesday night is our next scheduled live stream. Open mic call-in night. Don't miss it. Invite a friend. Like I said, I was pretty spicy today on my personal Twitter account. So we'll see what happens there. And lo and behold, the man, the myth, the legend makes an appearance. Here he is. Let's say hi to Mr. Ben King.
Kyle, I apologize, but just like our beloved Auburn Tigers, I decided to show up about an hour late. So
going how are you doing?
21-0. My grass is cut, and I missed the review of Ole Miss. So.
Listen, I am actually disappointed for you because this one had a lot more good things to talk about. You and I have been trying to find things to glean out of the other ones, and this one was a lot better.
I missed how you reviewed the O-line, but I look forward to going back and seeing your glowing review.
It was not glowing. They did allow a tackle from behind. They still allowed them to get hit a lot when they shouldn't have. And stopping Tank at the line a few times. But I mean, when you got Tank going 20 attempts for 170 something yards, and that's something, they did something right. So
there you go.
Listen, this is one of those nights where I was not harping on the offensive line. It was not 100%, but it was definitely better than it has been. Any quick thoughts you want to give about the game?
I'm glad that we have a bye week because we need it. Overall, I loved the fight of the guys. The fact that we did not give up. That's been something that stayed true for a majority of the season, which is impressive considering kind of the situation we found ourselves in many times. We did well in the second half, which we have not been able to finish games. One of these days, if we put together a full, 60-minute game, then we might actually win some. So it should be good.
The frustrating thing is that we've been begging for the offense to show up for the defense, and then the defense failed us at the end. And it just feels like we are this. Listen, I know people are going to make fun of Coach when I say this. They've been doing it on social media all day. That he made the statement. He said that we're a lot closer than people think. Yeah, we can have fun with that on Twitter. But I mean, I actually do agree with that statement, that we are a lot closer than we actually think we are to putting something together to salvage this season. Will it happen? That remains to be seen, right? This thing can still turn completely sideways. But what we saw on Ole Miss, if that team that showed up on offense can do what they did again, if the defense that did in the last couple of games outside of this one can show up, this is a team that, can be competitive in every game they play. For the full game, that remains to be seen, but it can be competitive.
Yep. No, completely agree. Arkansas is a possibility. Say that KJ Jefferson gets hurt again. Texas A&M looks like crap, so they're a possibility too. Yep. Mississippi State just lost to Kentucky for no reason. So there's 3 potential wins right there that, we get Kentucky. 2 of those going bowling.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll see what happens. It is good to see you on the back end of the show, sir. And we appreciate you popping in and let us see your smiling face.
Yeah. Good to see you as well, Kyle.
All right, guys. Thank y'all so much for tuning into the show tonight. We appreciate you being here, hanging out with us tonight. And until we talk to you on Wednesday night's live stream, be there or be square or eagle.
Or eagle.